Zara Williams had always believed in working quietly, in letting her actions speak louder than words. For 8 years, she had walked into the towering glass building downtown, coffee in hand, laptop bag slung over her shoulder, her heels clicking softly against the polished floors. She knew every corner, every routine, every face, yet no one truly knew her. She was reliable, competent, unassuming, and utterly invisible to the people who believed power belonged only to those who made noise. Her desk was small, tucked in a quiet corner of the department she ran for years, unseen by those who mattered. She had spent countless nights correcting mistakes others had made, staying late to organize files, helping new employees navigate a maze of paperwork that no one else wanted to touch. Lunches were often skipped. Weekends became hours of silent dedication. She had given the company everything, and no one even noticed. Ryan Malik, the CEO, strode through the hallways like he owned the world. His tailored suit, expensive watch, and commanding presence made it clear he believed power came from intimidation. To him, silence meant obedience. He had never looked closely at the people who quietly held his empire together. When Zara received the message to see him that morning, she entered his office with a polite knock and a tentative smile. Ryan looked up from his laptop, not a flicker of emotion crossing his face. "Zara, your services are no longer required. Today is your last day," he said casually, as if dismissing a minor inconvenience rather than the woman who had kept his department afloat for nearly a decade. Zara's mouth went dry. She could barely process his words. I don't understand. I've been handling your department flawlessly. The reports, the deadlines, the clients. It doesn't matter," he interrupted, voice flat and final. "You're replaceable. Pack your desk and return your badge." A cold, numbing silence followed. Coworkers peered from their stations, pretending not to notice. They had witnessed countless injustices from this man, and had learned that speaking up only invited scrutiny. The weight of betrayal pressed on Zara's chest, yet she refused to break. Her hands shook as she began to pack her belongings. A small potted plant she had nurtured for years, her favorite pen, a notebook full of meticulously organized notes, a photo of her late father reminding her of who she truly was. Every step out of that office felt surreal. 8 years of dedication, overlooked, 8 years of late nights and sacrifices, dismissed in mere seconds, and yet, behind her calm exterior, a quiet determination was beginning to ignite. This wasn't the end, it was merely the first spark of a reckoning that Ryan Malik could never see coming. Outside the office, she walked slowly through the buzzing floors, noticing the faces of her colleagues. Some offered sympathetic glances, others averted their eyes, too cautious to intervene. "It's okay," she whispered to herself, a soft tremor in her voice. "Sometimes losing something is just the beginning." Hidden in her purse was an envelope, sealed and confidential. A secret Ryan had never suspected, a truth she had carried quietly through the years. Years ago, when she had started in this very office, she had quietly invested, managed, and protected her assets. No one had known she owned a controlling share in not only the building she worked in but also the corporation itself. She had let him believe he held the power, but the truth was hers all along. As she exited the building, the crisp morning air hit her face. For the first time in years, she felt light. Ryan had believed he was ending her career. What he had done was release a force he could never control. The seeds of her rise, planted in silence, were about to bloom into something unstoppable. Zara paused at the top of the steps, looked up at the towering glass walls that had witnessed her struggles, her sacrifices, and her invisibility. She smiled faintly, a smile full of quiet power and unwavering confidence. For once, she was in control. Ryan Malik had fired the wrong person, and she knew it. He had no idea that the very foundation of everything he boasted about was built on her intellect, her patience, and her foresight. As she walked away from the building, she did not look back. The city stretched before her, full of possibilities, and she felt the exhilarating rush of anticipation. Soon, very soon, everyone would know the truth. And when that day came, she wouldn't just be the woman who was fired, she would be the one who held all the cards. Zara walked briskly through the city streets, her heels clicking softly against the concrete. Each step was measured, deliberate, a rhythm that matched the heartbeat of her rising resolve. The morning sunlight reflected off the glass towers, shimmering like tiny promises of the future she had long imagined. For the first time, she felt the thrill of liberation, rather than the sting of betrayal. Hidden inside her purse was the envelope that could topple Empire's documents, proving that every asset Ryan Malik claimed as his own was, in fact, under her name. The corporation he flaunted at board meetings, the building he had strutted through like a king, all of it belonged to her. For years, she had kept it secret, letting him believe he was untouchable, while quietly setting the stage for this very moment. She reached a quiet cafe and sat by the window, spreading out the contents of the envelope. Property deeds, legal registrations, and corporate filings glinted under the morning sun. Her hands traced the embossed letters on the top sheet. She had done everything right, protecting herself with legal precision, anticipating the day someone like Ryan would attempt to cut her out, and now that day had come. As she reviewed the papers, her mind drifted back to the countless late nights she had endured, coding financial algorithms in the small office tucked behind the HR department, drafting contracts while Ryan entertained investors, protecting intellectual property he had assumed he controlled. He had never suspected that the quiet woman he mocked behind closed doors was quietly holding all the keys. She remembered the whispers, the sideways glances, the subtle digs at her competence. "You're too slow," he would say, "stick to clerical work." And all the while, she was laying the foundation for a comeback that would leave him speechless. She allowed herself a small smile. The irony was delicious. The man who thought he owned it all was just a figurehead in the empire she had built. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her attorney, confirming that all filings were in order, the corporate share transfers legally binding and ironclad. The timing had to be perfect. Public exposure would hit him like a storm, humiliating, irreversible. But it wasn't anger that fueled her plan. It was precision, control, and the satisfaction of proving the truth. She left the cafe and walked to a nearby park, letting the breeze wash over her. Memories of Ryan's condescending tone and sarcastic smiles resurfaced, but they no longer hurt. Instead, they hardened her resolve. The man who had once dismissed her as replaceable would soon be reminded that she was indispensable. Not only that, she held the ultimate power, the power to decide the fate of his empire. Hours passed as she walked, strategized, and visualized the confrontation ahead. She imagined the look on Ryan's face when the board realized the truth, when the assets shifted irrevocably into her name. She imagined his stunned silence, the gasps from colleagues who had once mocked her, the wide-eyed expressions of investors who had blindly trusted him. Even as she planned, Zara allowed herself to acknowledge a quiet joy. It wasn't just revenge, it was vindication. For years, she had been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. And now, finally, the world would see what she had known all along. Her intellect, her patience, her foresight, and her resilience had always been her true power. As evening approached, she returned home to her apartment, the envelope securely in her bag. She placed her belongings on the desk and sat down, thinking about the upcoming board meeting where she would reveal her secret. She imagined Ryan's arrogance crumbling, the shock on his face, the whispers spreading through the office like wildfire. She allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. One wrong move, one leaked document, and her plan could unravel. Night fell, and the city lights flickered to life. From her apartment window, Zara gazed out at the skyline, each building a reminder of how far she had come, and how much farther she was willing to go. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow would change everything. The woman Ryan had thought he could dismiss so easily would rise to claim what had always been hers. And as she turned off the lights and prepared for rest, she whispered to herself, "I am ready. Let them see who really owns this world." Zara woke up early the next morning, the city still draped in mist and quiet anticipation. Today was the day everything would change. She dressed meticulously, not for appearances, but for the sense of control it gave her. Every accessory, every fold of her blouse, every detail was deliberate, a silent reminder to herself that she was no longer the woman who could be dismissed with a word. She arrived at the building before anyone else, the same glass towers she had walked through countless times, now seeming different, not intimidating, but hers. The receptionist greeted her politely, but Zara barely noticed. Her mind was consumed with the plan, the timing, the precision required to reveal her secret and finally claim her power. As the elevator rose to the executive floor, she thought about Ryan Malik, arrogant, charming, and utterly unaware that his empire rested on her work. He believed he had removed her from the equation, that firing her had erased the woman who had silently built his success. If he only knew how carefully she had prepared, how patiently she had waited, he might have paused. But she wasn't here to beg for recognition. She was here to take what was always hers. The boardroom doors opened, and Ryan was already there, leaning casually against the table with a smug smile. He barely acknowledged her presence. "Ah, Zara, I wasn't expecting you to come back so soon," he said, a faint chuckle in his voice. Zara's eyes met his, calm, unwavering. "I wouldn't miss this meeting for anything," she replied smoothly. The room was silent, the tension palpable. Other executives exchanged curious glances, sensing the weight of what was about to happen but unaware of its magnitude. She placed her bag gently on the table, opened it, and revealed the envelope of documents. The room collectively leaned forward. "These," she said, her voice steady and clear, "contained the legal proof of ownership for every asset Ryan Malik has ever claimed as his own in this company. Every building, every share, every contract." Ryan froze. His confident posture faltered slightly. "That's impossible," he muttered, his voice tight. "It's not impossible," Zara continued. "It's meticulous planning, foresight, and patience. I allowed you to believe you had control, while I quietly ensured that the foundation of your empire was under my name, and today, I'm here to claim it." Murmurs rippled across the room. Executives whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief. "Zara, you can't do this," Ryan hissed, his voice rising. "You were an employee, a mere administrator. I built this." She raised a hand, silencing him with her calm authority. "You built a public image," she said, "but the work that truly mattered, the work that made this company profitable, was mine. And legally, it always has been mine." Her eyes scanned the room. She knew this confrontation was more than just about her and Ryan. It was about exposing the truth, about showing that patience, intellect, and courage were worth more than arrogance and entitlement. She watched Ryan's face turn pale as realization dawned, his confident mask crumbling under the weight of undeniable proof. "All of this," she gestured to the documents, "ensures that the company now recognizes me as the majority owner. Ryan Malik, effective immediately. You are no longer the decision maker here. The board will honor the legal filings." The chairman of the board cleared his throat, visibly shocked. "Ms. Williams, these documents are in perfect order. Legally, you are correct." Ryan's voice trembled. This is insane. I can't believe this." Zara smiled faintly, the calm satisfaction of a well-executed plan radiating from her. "Believe it," she said softly, "because it's real, and it's final." The room was silent for a moment, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Then, slowly, murmurs of approval and astonishment spread among the executives. Some stared at Ryan, incredulous. Others looked at Zara with newfound respect. She had not only proven herself, she had commanded the room without anger, without shouting, only with truth and careful preparation. Ryan stumbled backward, disbelief turning to desperation. You can't do this." "You already did," she replied, serene, almost gentle. "And now, I suggest you step aside." Executives nodded, and a few took immediate action to formalize the transition. Ryan realized his position was lost, his control slipping away, and for the first time, he understood the consequences of underestimating someone he thought he could dismiss so easily. Zara's heart beat steadily, but inside, there was an electric thrill. She had waited years for this moment, and it was finally here. The woman who had been invisible, underestimated, and dismissed had emerged with quiet power, reclaiming her rightful place. As the boardroom emptied and the formalities continued, Zara allowed herself a deep breath. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, lights twinkling, a vast stage ready for her next steps. She had claimed what was hers, and nothing, not arrogance, not betrayal, not underestimation, could take it away. For years, she had waited, and now, finally, the world would see her for who she truly was. A quiet mind, a steady hand, and a relentless spirit that no one could break. The morning sun poured through the glass walls of the boardroom, reflecting off polished surfaces and casting long shadows. Zara stood by the window, her gaze sweeping over the city she had always walked through quietly, unseen. underestimated. Today, she no longer felt small. Today, she felt unstoppable. The transition of power had begun yesterday, and today the reality was settling in. Employees whispered her name with newfound respect. The same people who had once overlooked her diligence now turned to her with admiration, seeking guidance and approval. For years, she had built this empire in silence. Now, she would lead it in full view. Zara's mind was calm but alert. She knew that taking control wasn't just about legal ownership, it was about vision, strategy, and careful management. Ryan Malik, for all his arrogance, had one advantage: knowledge of the company's operations. She respected the systems he had built, even as she prepared to redefine them in her image. As she walked through the office, employees subtly parted to let her pass. Her steps were measured, deliberate, a subtle signal that a new era had begun. This company has always been more than one person, she said softly but firmly. It's built on dedication, intelligence, and integrity. I have spent years ensuring that our foundation is strong. Now it's time to build higher, to innovate, and to lead without fear or ego. The executives nodded, some exchanging impressed looks. Whispers of admiration spread through the room. After the meeting, Zara returned to her office. But inside, every detail, every system, every decision now carried her imprint. She had transformed from an invisible worker to a formidable leader. Her phone buzzed, messages of congratulations, expressions of loyalty, and offers of collaboration. She smiled, realizing that the people who mattered recognized her worth. And though Ryan had once wielded fear as a tool, Zara now understood that true power came from respect, intelligence, and the courage to wait for the right moment. As the day waned, she stood by her office window, watching the sun set over the skyline. The glow of the city mirrored the triumph in her heart. She had endured humiliation, betrayal, and dismissal. She had been underestimated, ignored, and doubted. And yet, here she was, calm, composed, and commanding an empire she had always deserved. Zara whispered to herself, a soft but unwavering declaration: I was always ready, I was always capable. And now, I am unstoppable. The office lights dimmed, but her vision remained bright. She knew challenges would come, rivalries would emerge, and skepticism would persist. But she also knew one unshakable truth. She had proven her strength, claimed her power, and earned the respect that had long been denied to her. For Zara Williams, the quiet years of dedication were now the foundation of her reign. And as she looked out over the city, a triumphant smile played on her lips, the kind of smile reserved for those who had silently conquered the impossible. This was her moment. This was her triumph. And from this day forward, no one would ever underestimate her again.